Hello, everyone. Welcome to the world of Google. My name is Oleg Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library. I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. Martin Malelu is a MakeMo or Makermobile librarian with LA County Library, which means that they drive a Makermobile van all over the county doing STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math programs for audiences aged 0 to 100 and above. We go to schools, parks, senior centers, essentially anywhere that we are called. And today, Martin will be presenting on the world of Google. This isn't the first time that we're talking about Google during these digital literacy events every Thursday at 11. In the past, we've done advanced Google search. And in fact, Martin has also covered a program on productivity suites, uh, comparing Microsoft Office with Google Drive. But today, we're going to be expanding the world of Google we've looked at thus far. And so with that, I'd like to bring Martin up to the stage.
Awesome. So as Oleg said, we're going to talk about Google a little bit and all that Google can do beyond just like web searching. And if you were in the program or watched on YouTube the program on like Google Docs and Google Sheets and all of those things, Google has a lot to offer. They are a pretty big internet presence. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do with Google. So Google has a ton of websites and applications that you can use to help you with a ton of different stuff, such as taking a quicker route to work. Google also has this new feature. I don't know how new it is, but I only recently noticed it when I type in on my phone. It'll show me the most fuel efficient route somewhere, as well as the quickest route. And those might be the same or they might be different. You can also find a flight with Google. You can change the criteria of the flight you're looking for. So if you want a flight with no layovers, you can opt in for that. Or if you want, again, you can also like find the most fuel efficient flight with Google. And you can also, they have a stocks thing, I think it's called Google Finance, and you can check the status of different stocks. And this picture right here on the right is kind of an overview of some of the things that Google has to offer. And we're only going to have time to talk about a few of them, but I definitely suggest that you explore them all. There's a lot out there to look at. So let's go on. So an example of a time you might be interested in a thing that Google offers is if you wanted to create digital copies of your physical photos with your phone, what would you do? You could just take a picture like normal with your camera on your phone, but Google offers this app called PhotoScan, and it can help you make your photos look a little bit better. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, that's just one example of something that Google has to offer. So to look at what Google has to offer, you're going to open a web browser, whatever web browser you use, and you're going to, or in Chrome. So this is, I think this is specifically in Chrome. There's a little, at the top, there's these dots right here. Let me get my little annotation thing. These dots right here, if you click them, they bring up this screen right here, all of these options of different things that you can look at, and you can scroll down and there's more from Google. So these are some of the ones that come up right away, but if you scroll down, you can click more from Google and it'll take you to that page that we were looking at before. So the ones that come up right away are the ones that I think that Google thinks that people would use the most, such as like Gmail or YouTube or Reading the News. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about what's popular. So Google News. Google News displays the top stories of the day on a homepage. And if you have a Google account and you're logged into your Google account and you go to Google News, you can customize that homepage. So you can see specific news sites that you're interested in, or you can include specific topics or exclude specific topics. So if you don't want to read about a specific story, you can say, I'm not interested in this story, and then Google will stop presenting you news articles on those topics. Or if you're particularly interested in one, you can make sure that Google shows you more news stories on that. Or if you're like totally opposed to like a specific news site, you can omit that news site from what Google News shows you. So let's take a look at what Google News looks like. So this is what it would look like. I'm not logged into a Google account here. So this is what Google looked like. I don't know what day this was. This was like a couple weeks ago, I think. These were like the top headlines of the day that day. So it's just showing me what people were reading the most and what people were most interested in that day. And then you can see on the left over here, I'm going to get this annotation going again. There's like this For You thing right here where if I was logged in, I could look at specific stories for me. You can follow specific topics right here that will allow you to just track certain things. You can save searches too. So that way you can come back to things that you're interested in. And you can also limit right here, you can limit the area where you are getting those news sources or those, those news pieces of information from. So if you only want to read world news or you only want to read US news, you can also limit right here the topics as well. So there's a lot. You can totally just look at only news you're interested in, or you can look at news from specific places. It's totally up to you. So you can customize that pretty heavily to make sure that you're getting the information that you want. So let's go. Okay, so then we have Google Maps. So Google Maps can give directions to a location along with commute times. And you can also change how you're getting to that location. So you can be driving, walking, taking a bus, hitchhiking, or riding a bicycle. And it can offer various routes to different locations. And if you have a Google account, you can save locations and save routes. You can just so that you can go back to them later. So if there's a place you go and you've only been a few times and you don't remember how to get there, you can save that location so you don't have to look it up every time, and you can just type in, like if it's your doctor's office, you can just type in doctor, and then Google will just automatically take you to the doctor. So Google Maps is all of these that we're talking about today. Most of them are available on a phone as well as, or a phone or a tablet, as well as on a computer. So we're going to be mostly looking at screenshots from a computer, but they are available on a phone as well. And I'll let you know when we're looking at a screenshot from a phone as opposed to a computer. So this is what Google Maps looks like on a computer. So this is just kind of what it would look like if you just were on the basic Google Maps, just the homepage of Google Maps. So you can see here that you can, this is Google Directions. So this is going to, or this is Google Maps, but we're also in the directions part of Google Maps. So here you can type in where you're starting and where you're going. This kind of shows you what traffic is like in the area that you're looking at. So this is, whenever I took this screenshot, there were all these closures. It's telling you where those are. They have little icons on the map too. So right here, there's like some kind of thing going on. I don't know if that's a closure or a delay, but something happened right there to slow down traffic. So you can kind of note things when you have this overview right here. So if you are wanting to go somewhere, here we go. Okay, so I was like, what if I flew into LAX? And I immediately was like, I need to get to the Manhattan Beach Library. So I did some directions here from LAX to the Manhattan Beach Library, and you can see on here, it's giving me directions, and the gray lines that you can see on the roads, the lighter gray lines. So there's one right here and then right here. Those are alternate routes. So you can always click on those and Google will give you different routes. But you can also see how traffic is. So the blue line on this route is where traffic is good. The yellow line is a little bit slower. And then the red line, I don't know if there's any red lines on here, would be where traffic is really slow. Another cool thing about Google Maps is it kind of shows you what's around. So here, I'm not zoomed in super close, so it's not going to show me everything in a lot of detail. But here, you can see that there's like a restaurant right here. There's a grocery store right here. If you zoom in further, it shows you more, which is kind of cool. There's another grocery store right here. So it does show you a couple things. It shows you this beach right here. There's a park. So you can kind of explore your area without having to drive around and look for stuff. So if you're just trying to find like a park nearby, Google Maps can be kind of helpful in looking for that kind of thing. And then let's look at one more thing. So over here, this is telling you, this is your actual directions over here. This is how to get from the airport to Manhattan Beach Library using this blue line right here. If I was to click on one of the other gray lines, it would change the direction. The directions over here on the left. From here, you can print it, you can transfer it to your phone. You can do a lot from here too. If you want to look at gas stations, grocery stores, hotels, you can click those up here. So yeah, you can just kind of play around with that and see what's near you, what's near where you're going. There's lots to do. So let's look at something else. So Google Flights. Google Flights, you can look for different flights using whatever criteria you input. You can browse flights, you can book them, and pay for them all through Google Flights. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is what it'll look like when you want to book a flight through Google Flights. You're going to select the number of people, select how you want to fly, and whether you want round trip or one way. Then you pick your starting place and where you want to go and the dates. And then you search. And you can, once you start your search, it'll let you kind of limit it a little bit more. So let's take a look at the next screen and I'll show you what those limiters kind of look like. All right, so, okay. So here we have, so if I'm going to go from Los Angeles to India, I want to go in the past, February 4th to February 8th. I can, from here, I can track the prices. So if I'm like, oh, $926 is too much, I want to see if it goes down. I can sign up to get email alerts for when those prices go down. You can change how many stops there are. You can limit by what airline, how many bags, price, all these things. You can limit your flight search by just like a ton of different things. If there's a specific airport you want to stop at, there's really, like, you can really tailor your flight to how you want, what you want your experience to be. Google does not prevent the airlines from changing your flights in the future. So if your flight does change, that's not because Google changed it, that's because your airline changed it. But yeah, so Google Flights, it's a good way to kind of look at different flights and get an idea, and you can book a flight. So let's talk about Google Tasks. So if you have any questions, I know we're kind of going over this pretty quickly. If you have any questions, we will have time at the end for Q&A. So put them in the chat, and we will cover them in the end. So Google Tasks allows users to create to-do lists. You can add relevant details, break down tasks into steps, and add calendar notifications for time-sensitive tasks. So this is, again, this is on a computer. This is what this looks like on a computer. It looks very, very similar on a phone. It's almost identical on a phone, actually. So this is what it looks like. So what I needed to do was go to the library, and at the library, I needed to check out 3 books, print out forms, and renew my library card. I can add those things. If I was going to add a task, this is what it looks like when you click this add a task button right here. It comes up with this, and then you can give it a title and some details. You can add a time or date. I didn't add a time or date to go to the library. I also added a cartoon up because that's what it would look like if you had two different tasks that you needed to do. So let's look at, okay, so this is what, so if you are using a Google account and you have your Gmail up, your Google Tasks is going to be on the right-hand side. You can open it and it can be connected to your email if you click this little button right here. So then you can easily take anything that came from your Gmail account and just throw it onto a task if you need to. So that's what that looks like next to that. So it can be super helpful. Also on this, before we move on, is this Google Keep icon and Google Calendar. So both of those you can, we're going to talk about Google Keep here shortly, but both of those are integrated into Gmail, which is pretty helpful, I think. And then, all right, so this is what it looks like on a phone. So this is what it, and again, like it's pretty much identical. If you wanted to add a task, you would click this little plus down here at the bottom, and you would be able to add a new task to what you are interested in adding. And then we're going to talk about photo scan. So photo scan, I kind of brought it up earlier. It allows you to essentially scan your physical photos with your phone, and it automatically corrects some issues. So I don't know if you've ever compared, like if you take a picture of a photo with your phone versus putting it into a flat scanner and having it scanned. That scanner, just by the way it is and the way it exists, creates a better environment for transferring that photo to a digital copy, right? So if you're just taking a picture with your phone, just like on a table, you can't really create or it's harder to create an area where you can control the light, right? So you're probably going to get some glare. It might not be straight up and down. So with photo scan, Google kind of replicates what it would be like in a scanner, in a scanner environment. So let's look at how that works. So this is a picture I took of a library card with photo scan. And as you can see, there's like a lot of glare. It's kind of at an angle. It's not a great photo. But with photo scan, it gave me this image on the right. And it's not perfect. It definitely still has a little bit of a glare in it, but it's nothing like what it is on the left. And it's much easier to tell what's underneath that glare with photo scan than it is if I had just kept that original photo. So I think photo scan is definitely something really cool that Google has to offer. And then Google Keep. So I talked about Google Keep and how you can integrate it with your Gmail earlier. So Google Keep allows users to take, before we get onto this, let me go back to this. This is only a thing on your phone. So photo scan doesn't exist really on your desktop because it requires you to take a picture. So you would have to have this application in your phone. So let's go back to Google Keep. So Google Keep, it allows users to take short notes and reminders. You can insert images, text, or audio into the notes. You can also insert handwriting. So if you just want to like draw a picture or handwrite a note, you can do that with Google Keep. And like I said, you can integrate it into your Gmail. So if you're reading an email and you need to like take a short note, you can do that with Google Keep and it'll always be attached to your email. This is also an application on your phone. So this is what my Google Keep looks like. So this is on my phone. Yeah, so this is on my phone. I always have a shopping list because I just find that it's pretty handy. I also have a list of board games that I think are cool that I want to check out, restaurants. But here I inserted an image. So that's what an image would look like if it was inserted. This one is also an image. You can take notes on whatever you need, whatever you want. I also pinned the shopping list. So it's always at the top because as you create notes, they'll pile up and then you won't be able to get the ones that you need. So since I always need to add to my shopping list or I need to see it pretty quickly if I'm like at the store, I always like to pin the notes that I use the most to the top. And down here at the bottom, you can create a list note, you can create a handwritten note, you can do an audio note or a picture note. And then to add a new note, you just click that. You can search your notes. So if you have a ton, you can always find them later. It'll search the text in the notes. So that's that. This is what it looks like on a desktop computer or a laptop computer. Essentially the same. It works very similarly. All the same options are here. There's not a lot of difference, but this is just what it looks like if you have it on a computer as opposed to a desktop or as opposed to on a phone. So you have some of the same options over here, and then your list, drawing, and photo note options over here. But yeah, it's essentially the same. And then Google Translate. So Google Translate allows users to convert text or speech from one language to another. It offers a ton of different languages and various ways to translate those things. So this is what it looks like on a computer. So here I typed welcome to the library in English and I converted it to Spanish over here on the right. And these are the two options it gave me. If you click those little arrows right here, you can change what language you're starting with and what language you're ending with. You can convert documents or websites with this. You can save different things. You can look at what you've searched in the past if you have a Google account. You can also talk into it. So you can, if I wanted to say welcome to the library, I could do that. And then this allows me to hear those options. So if I wanted to hear what the translations were, I could do so with these two buttons right here. You can also, actually, let's go first. Okay, yeah, so here is what it looks like on a phone. So, oops, going too far. So if you wanted to type in your text again, you can do that. And it's got the options down at the bottom for what language you start with and what language you want to end with. It can also, if you're talking to someone, it can help with translations during a conversation. So you would have to have your phone out and it would listen to both sides of the conversation. And it would allow translation to occur during the conversation. Another really cool thing that you can do with the phone app of Google Translate is a camera. So if you are looking at a sign that's in a language that you are unfamiliar with, you can take a picture of it and it will translate that sign for you. You don't have to type in all the words. It'll just do it with a picture. So that's kind of what we're going to go over, or we're going to go over in depth today. So we learned about a couple of Google programs, what they can offer you. If you have questions, put them in the chat. And let's talk very briefly about a couple of these. We're not going to go into depth about these. These are just some other popular Google applications that you can, are fun to play with, I think. So Snapseed is good for photo editing. It's got a lot more to offer than PhotoScan. It's like a full-fledged photo edit. It's not quite as, it's not like Photoshop or anything, but it's definitely like It's more in depth as far as photo editing goes. There's Google Fit if you want to track your fitness or your exercise. Google Lens is pretty cool. You can search things with your camera. So if you are looking at a if you're looking at a book in the library and you want to read more about that book with Google Lens, you could just take a picture of that book and Google will just search that book for you. Or if you're trying to troubleshoot something, say you're like trying to troubleshoot a printer, you could take a picture of the printer name, and it will automatically search the name of that printer for you. I talked a little bit about Google Finance earlier. You can track your stocks and through that. And then expeditions is really cool too. You can take virtual field trips. You can go to different museums, different historical sites. I think they also have like different archaeological sites. There's a bunch of cool stuff that you can like virtually explore. And a lot of it is like kind of like real life walking through, like you push forward and the camera moves forward and you get to look and see what's around you. So it'd be like actually walking through a museum, but with your phone or with your desktop. So I think that those are some pretty cool things to uh, look at with Google. I like Google Lens a lot and Google Expeditions. I think they're both fun and very useful. Um, and yes, so at the end of this presentation, you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint, and you can click these links, or you can write down the names of these books right now. Those are two books that you can check out that tell you a little bit more about Google. We also have Universal Class, which is online courses that you can take if you want more computer literacy skills, or you want to just refresh your computer literacy skills. There are these 3 computer literacy classes. There's one level 1, 2, and 3. They get a little bit more advanced as you go on, and you can check those out. So we also have reference services. So if you need more information or you need help with any library needs, you can talk to a librarian. You can call your local library, and you can go to lacountylibrary.org to learn a little bit more about where your local library might be. You can text the librarian Monday through Friday, 12 to 6, or you can chat with the librarian via Instant Librarian, which is on our website, and that's Monday through Friday, 12 to 6 as well. So yeah, we're available a lot of the time, and yeah, like, what are our questions?
Oh, we've got a few questions.
Nice. That's what I like to hear.
Hang on one second. I'm just typing a message and then we'll get to the questions. Okay. So a lot of people have asked about PhotoScan. It's generated a lot of interest.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind, can you talk more about PhotoScan? Like, what is the process? How does it work? Maybe let's start with how to install it, and then what happens when you open it, and how does it work?
So PhotoScan is super, super basic. It's an app for your phone. You're just going to search PhotoScan, and it's going to come up. And this is pretty much the entirety of PhotoScan. What you're looking at right here is it. Um, so you're just going to put your picture in the frame and you're going to snap a picture of it and it's going to save to your phone. And that's, there's not a lot to it. You can edit it a tiny, tiny bit in PhotoScan, but I like hardly at all. It's basically just you're taking a picture and it's taking out the glare, and then it's saving it to your phone. To get it to save somewhere else, you would have to like email it to yourself or email it to someone else or upload it to Google Drive or whatever cloud service you want. But I mean, this is basically it. Like you just take a picture with your phone and it just takes the glare out and makes it a little bit more presentable.
Okay, and so that once it saves it on your phone, um, then you just do whatever you want with it after that.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just saves it onto that device, and then you can either plug it into the computer, or you can send it using Google Photos or some other
Right. Yeah.
photo
Whatever you
editing.
use.
Send it to your email, or transfer it.
Right.
Can you crop out the background within Google
Uh,
Photos Scanner, or does it do it automatically?
it does it for you.
Oh, that's
It,
convenient.
yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on with some more questions. Um, uh, do you still run into paywalls on Google News?
You do, yes. But one thing that you can do with Google News is if you are logged into your own account, you can, like, I know that New York Times has like a 5 articles a week limit or something, 5 articles a month. I don't know what their limit is.
Yeah, something like that. I think maybe three
Yeah,
actually.
right. So if you don't want to see articles from the New York Times because you hate running into that paywall, you can make it so that Google News doesn't show you any articles from New York Times. So you can limit that if you want. So you will run into paywalls, but you can change your, just adjust your settings so that you don't.
So let me see what else we have here. How do you save directions in Google Maps? Can you save directions?
Excuse me. Yeah, you can. Let me go back to. All right. So if you want to save here, you can send it to your phone and save it. I think that there's a, what is the button? I I've only ever saved it on my phone, so I'm not quite sure how you would do that on a desktop. Um,
I think if you share, then you might be able to export or like email
right.
it to yourself.
Yeah, I know you can do it on a desktop. It's probably under here somewhere, under these little 3 lines. There's probably an option there
Yeah.
that will allow you to save it. But I've only ever saved it on my phone, and I know that on your phone, let me show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. There's a little button at the bottom that says saved. I don't know if you can see that at
No,
all.
not really.
Oh, it
That's
went
pretty.
away. That's why you can't see
Yeah.
it. But there's a little button at the bottom that says saved, and you can click that little button and it'll save stuff. It's like a little ribbon icon. Um,
Mhm.
but it's probably under these little 3 lines right here on Google Maps. But I know you
Yeah,
can save stuff.
yeah, you can also, if you share, you can also get the web address for the map, and then you can type in that web address. You just save that web address, and then you can type that
Right.
in anytime, and or click that link anytime, and it'll take you to those directions.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, you just printed out MapQuest directions.
Sometimes if I ask for directions, I say, can we map quest that just for fun?
Yeah, MapQuest was sort of the original kind of mapping and direction software, and then Google Maps took over, and Waze took over. So let's talk a little bit about Google Keep. We had a question about pinning. What does pinning mean in Google Keep? You mentioned that. Can you review
Yeah.
that?
So let's go to key. Here we go. So I have this shopping list pinned. So there's a little option if you click on the list, there's a little pin, like a push pin icon. And if you click on that, it's going to keep your list at the top. So if you create new lists, they're going to be at the top. So you can see that I have these pinned ones here. If I was to create a new list, it would start right here. It would come in here, and then if I just created more and more, they would all pile on top of each other. But I want my shopping list at the top because that's the one I look at the most and the one I need the most and the one that I add to the most. So I don't want it to be buried at the bottom underneath other notes that I create.
Mm,
I keep that one at the top. It's also helpful because if you go back and you watch the one where the video I did on uh, phones and tablets, I talk about widgets. So I use a widget for Google Keep. That way I can always see my shopping list on the front of my phone.
yeah.
So that's a plug for another video that we have, smartphones and tablets.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to include that in the follow-up email. And everything that you see here, folks, will be sent out as a follow-up email. The video recording of this program, the slides that Martin is using, and all the links that we're talking about, and links to all the programs, I mean to all the apps that we're talking about will be sent out. So if you're trying to frantically keep up and not succeeding, that's okay because you'll be able to review these.
Right.
So let's go on to so we had a few questions about uh, whether these apps that you're showing us, whether they're available in the browser, whether they're available on the phone, because accessing all of these apps is a little bit different. So can you just quickly go through the different Google apps that you've covered and let us know whether they're a phone app, whether they're a browser-based app, or both, and kind of where to access them. And I'll put
Well,
those links in later in follow up as well.
I think the only one that is not on a browser is photo scan, um, because you would have to take a photo. So yeah, so this is, I think that Google News is on the phone and a tablet and also on a browser. This is what it looks like on a browser. Google Maps is also on a tablet or a phone and also a browser. Um, and all of the ones that you would get on a tablet or phone, they're all applications that you can download from the App Store or the Google Play Store. So they're all available on both iPhone and Android. Um, so what this looks like in a browser, on a phone is a little bit different. But I think most of the usability transfers over pretty well. So anything you can do on a browser, you can do on your tablet or your phone. Google Flights. I don't know if there's an app for Google Flights. I always do Google Flights through the website.
Um, Let me check on Google Play. Yeah, I've never
Yeah,
actually considered that.
yeah, it's never
I'm gonna
occurred to
look at the
me.
Play Store right now. Just
Yeah,
gonna just type in flights into the Play Store. Uh, well, if it exists, it's not coming up. So I suspect it might just be within the browser. Yeah, they
yeah,
don't. It doesn't look like
either.
they have an app. So yeah, I mean, you could access it via the mobile phone just by going to whatever browser that you used.
Right. Right. If you just type in Google Flights into your search engine, it's going to come up with this. So yeah, this is just on a browser and it does not exist as an app, I guess. But let's see. Tasks is an app and also on the browser as well. And is, yeah, because here's what it looks like on my phone. That's on uh, my Android phone. And then this is what it looks like in the browser. This is also a screenshot from the browser as well. So that's what that looks like. Photo scan. I'm pretty sure that photo scan only exists on your phone because you have to take a picture. But uh, yeah, so that's how that is, and that's what that looks like. Google Keep. Google Keep is desktop and phone and tablet. This is what it looks like on my Android phone, and this is what it looks like on a desktop. Um, and then Google Translate, this is what it looks like on the browser.
Mhm.
This is what it looks like on my Android phone. So that also exists on a desktop or a laptop, and as well as a phone or tablet. And then, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, this can be slightly confusing, but for the most part, yeah, you can those a lot of them can be accessed in both places. So
Right. And even if there's no
convenient.
app, you can always just uh, do do it in a browser.
Right. So here's a basic question, but one that's actually really important for beginners here. So how do I sign up for a Google account on my computer in order to be able to use these apps?
So most of these apps, it isn't required that you have a Google account. Um, I think for the ones that like you need like consistency for, so like Google Keep, you would need a Google account. Otherwise, it's not going to know who you are or why it's saving these things. Um, but um, to sign up for a Google account, I, I haven't signed up for a Google account in a long time. You can just go to google.com and there's a thing at the top that says sign in, right? And you click
Yep.
that and it'll
Mhm.
prompt you to either sign in or create an account. So you can, it's free. If Google asks you for money or credit card information, you're in the wrong place, but it should be free.
Do you know, Martin, if PhotoScan is available for the App Store on or the Play Store on or the App Store on Apple's on iPhones?
Oh, I did not check that, but let me check that right now.
I'm looking at the website right now, and it looks like yeah, it looks like it is available through the App Store. I quickly searched for it, so yeah, it looks like you get it on Google Play and then download it on App Store. So yeah, it should be available on
On the
both types
iPhone.
of mobile devices. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of what Google does, they try to make it available to as many people as possible. I don't know of anything they have that's exclusive to Android.
Yeah,
So
Android, for those who don't know, is the operating system that's created by Google. So it's their own, the two biggest players in mobile phones is Apple with their iPhones. I mean, they have their own operating system, so it's basically what runs all of the things on the screen. And then Android is the one for the other big one, and it's made by Google and runs all the devices, all the apps on the that come up on the screen for a lot of mobile phones. So let's see what we have as far as more questions go. So we had a question about, I think this is more of a clarification question. I keep getting apps to request to add an extension to Google. What does that mean? Also, I keep getting warned that an upgrade is needed because of cyber attack. How do I do that? I think this person is asking not about Google in general, but about Google Chrome. So, uh, yeah, so extensions for Google Chrome. Google Chrome is the browser. It's what lets you access websites. And so we had another question in the chat about is browser synonymous with a computer or a tablet? So the answer to that is no, it's not. Martin, do you want to kind of give a quick synopsis of what a browser is, or
right.
what we mean when
So
we say that?
a browser is basically the interface that lets you look at uh, just different websites. So you have a browser on your desktop, so you might use like with Edge is the Microsoft one, and then there's Google Chrome and Firefox. I think those are like the three biggest ones. Or Safari is also one. So if you're an iPhone user, you might use Safari. And I don't, what's the one for, is Safari on Macs too, on MacBooks?
I think Safari is the one that's on Macs also.
Yeah, so those are like the big browsers that you might be familiar with, and those exist on a computer and also on a phone, on a tablet. So when we say a browser, it can be on any of those. So those aren't limited to one device in particular. If you're looking for browser extensions or you're asking about browser extensions, those are usually only compatible. In my experience, they've only been compatible with like computers. Is that your experience? Um,
So say that again. I missed that.
if you're looking at browser extensions, they're usually only
Mhm.
compatible with computers and not so much with phone browsers or tablet.
Yeah. Yeah, so typically, yeah, extensions and plugins, add-ons are all something that is often used on the phone because
Or you
the
mean on the
reason
computer?
yeah, sorry, on the computer. If they're on the computer. Uh, yeah, the reason those exist is because when you download the browser just from the website, or if it's just available on your computer, it's the basic thing. The extensions will give it additional functionality. So for example, when you're trying to log into WebEx, it asks you to download the WebEx plugin or extension. And the reason it does that is so that the WebEx app can run within the browser. So, and that's, I would say if the extension comes from a reputable company, then it's fine. Um, if you don't know what it is, I recommend looking it up or just denying it. But
Right.
WebEx is okay. WebEx is made by Cisco, which is a huge company that has existed for several decades. So let me see what else we have. We do have plenty of other questions here. Uh, so is there a way to find books through Google that are hard to find or not available, not easily accessible otherwise.
Through like Google Books. Is that because that's a
I
thing?
think I think Google Books and Google Scholar would be probably be the yeah,
Yeah.
those would be
Yeah, so Google does have its own like kind of book search engine called Google Books, where you can just look up different books. They're not, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like free to read or download. And sometimes they have like clips from, or they're not clips, like excerpts from the books that are free, depending on copyright.
mhm.
Um, but Google does kind of have its own little book search engine, just Google Books. And then Google Scholar, that Ollie mentioned, is a way that you can like look up academic articles. And I think sometimes there are like books in there as well, academic books specifically, that you can search in Google Scholar. So yeah, I would check if you're looking for a specific book or article, I would check Google Books or Google Scholar or ask a librarian.
Yeah, we're pretty good at search, I
Yeah.
hear. So, does Google give in-depth directions on how to use these apps? So are there is there documentation or help files that are easily accessible?
Google does offer assistance, and my phone keeps hearing me say the word Google, and it keeps trying to talk to me.
That happened to me too, just now.
So Google does offer help and assistance through, it might not necessarily be on the page that you're looking at. So let's go look at one of these. So like if you're looking at this Google Translate page right here, there isn't like an obvious, I need help or how do I use this kind of thing. But these three little lines up here, they usually offer some kind of like settings or help, or you can also just go to Google and say, how do I use, or Google, how do I use Google Translate? And there's usually some helpful Google guides out there for how to do stuff. But most of these sites don't have like super obvious instructions. They're usually also, I think Google tries to make everything pretty intuitive and hard to break. So you're not, if you just go in and you don't know what you're doing and you just start pushing buttons, it's unlikely that you're going to ruin everything forever. So you can't wreck Google Translate just by going in here and pushing buttons.
Yeah,
So,
but I would say that if somebody wants help, probably the best way to do it would be just to type in like Google Translate help into the
right.
search engine or Google
Yeah.
Photo Scan help, and probably the first one that comes up will be the actual Google page. But there are also other websites that will have created tutorials for some of those. But if you do that, I would just say make sure that the website that you're looking at has been updated because sometimes Google Apps have existed for a pretty long time, 10, 15 years, and you might type in, Gmail help, and it'll be Gmail from 5 or 10 years ago, which looks a lot different and functions a lot differently than Gmail now. These apps are constantly being updated, so if you find a website that's from 2015, it probably isn't the best help site for you. So we have actually a couple of really good questions here about data privacy. Uh,
Mm.
and two people have asked almost the same question. Since all of these are web-based or in the cloud, what is the best way to keep Alphabet is the company that owns Google, from gathering a lot of data about you after using their apps? And also, what does Google already know about you?
So Google probably already knows a lot about all of us. But I know that if you have a Google account, you can go into your settings and you can kind of uh, pick and choose how much Google knows and shares and keeps about you. You can also, there's just like a ton of privacy settings that you can play with. I don't have a screenshot of what that looks like, but you are able to kind of control what Google keeps and how long it keeps it. You can clear out your data if you want. You can say, I want Google to like forget everything it knows about me, and it will do that. Um, but you have to, for the most part, you have to uh, know to do those kinds of things. Otherwise, it's just going to keep all of that information about you. But you can go in and change it. And you can choose like, so if you can choose to not save locations. So if you don't want Google to track where you are, you can choose to just like not save locations that you go to all the time. You can go in and delete all the Google data so that it doesn't know where you've ever been. So you kind of have control over your privacy. You just have to know how to do it and when to do it.
Right. I think it's a trade-off. I think when we use computers, when we use the web and we use web services that are free, there's often a trade-off. And the trade-off is that the company that offers those services also captures data. Now, that is not to say that there aren't alternatives that allow you to use web apps for free without tracking. So, for example, there's a uh, productivity suite or a note-taking and document writing app called Skiff, which is fully encrypted. I'm going to type that into the chat just for people to use. Um, it's totally, privacy conscious. That's what it sells itself as. And even the engineers are working for Skiff aren't able to see what's in your documents. Now, there's a trade-off with that because if you lose your password and you lose your key, your encryption key, then you lose everything. They will not be able to help you access it. And uh, there's the network effect. So many people have the Google Docs, etc. So if you want to share with other people, they may not have that app. Um, and it's Google has a lot of stuff integrated, and so that makes it easier to use. However, yeah, there are definitely um, free alternatives, free and privacy conscious alternatives to many of the things that we're talking about. And maybe we'll do a program about it someday because I know I use a lot of them.
Mm.
So actually, I'm curious if folks out there would be interested in us doing an event on covering alternatives to the big companies who take your data, because there are definitely options out there. Oh, people are saying yes. So maybe we'll do that, Martin.
Cool.
But before we do that, let's cover a few more questions. Here's an easy one. Is Universal Class a free service?
It is free with your library card. So if you have a library card, you can go to our website, and I think it's under digital learning, or I can't remember what our
It's
website is.
under digital library and then
Digital
online
library.
learning. I'm gonna put a link in the
Yeah.
chat because it's actually
Okay, cool.
the link is easy.
Yeah,
So
and so you
all
just
of that
log
stuff
in
is
with your
available
library
through here.
card, and yeah, there's a bunch of other classes too. So it's not just computer literacy. I don't remember what else is on there. There's a bunch of other.
Universal class has anything from like how to apply makeup or like to, to like I had looked at a class on Judaism a while ago. It has almost like anything you can think of. It's kind of wild the breadth of classes that are offered through Universal class. So let's see what else we have here. Does Google Translate use native characters? So, for example, in English to Russian, does it use Cyrillic characters?
Yes, I know you have more uh, uh, experience than I do. So do you want to speak on that?
Sure. Google Translate definitely does. It does use other. Actually, I could demonstrate. Let me
Yeah,
bring up my brow. Let me bring up my browser, and
let me.
I'll show you how that works.
I'm gonna make you presenter.
Okay. And I'll share my screen. So, let me share this. There we go. Okay, Google Chrome up now. Okay, so I'm already in Google Translate. You can see um, right up here. All I did was type in translate.google.com. You memorize the web address or something, and then you can get to it anytime. You don't even have to search. So, if I want to type in something in English and say, um, I want to translate this sentence. I typed sentence wrong. See, it does a spell check. Okay, and then here it is in Pashto. So as you can see, it
Nice.
has the characters. Russian. Я хочу перевести это предложение. And then it'll do other, I mean, Google Translate has a lot of languages. So if you're interested in how to say that in Mongolian, here it is. I will not be reading that because I do not speak Mongolian. All right. Yeah, so Google Translate definitely has it's a very cool program. I know when I've had to read packages, sometimes I go to a Japanese market and I buy something and I'm curious what it says on the package. You can hold your phone up to it with Google Translate and it'll translate in real time what it says on this package. It's not always perfect, but it does it's interesting. It's always interesting to check. So let me go ahead and stop sharing here. I can switch the presenter back over to you, Martin, and then we can cover some more of these questions. So here we go. Demonstrations are always fun, except for when the internet crashes or the website doesn't work. Then not as fun. But this time everything went successfully. So, but yeah, privacy is a major concern, and I'm glad people brought that up. And then Google. Okay, so can screenshots of music sheets be converted so that I can print them out? Ooh, that depends on where they come from originally. That's a great question, but I
I,
think we need a little bit more information about that to really be
yeah,
able to answer it. So
believe it.
yeah, music is complicated because it really requires you have to be able to see it very well. So it has to be a good quality image for it to be printed out and for it to look good. This isn't a question that's not necessarily related to what we're talking about, but is there an app, maybe you know, Martin, is there an app to identify flowers or plant names?
I am fairly certain that there is. I'm sure Google Lens will do that as well. I'm sure if you like take a
Yes,
picture,
somebody mentioned it earlier. Somebody mentioned Google Lens earlier.
yeah, I
Oh,
think if you take a picture of a plant with Google
oh,
Lens, usually it might be able to do an
it
identifiable.
does do that. It says that it shows that right on the website.
Yeah,
Is this, there's actually it shows an example of it identifying a tulip.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Let me I'm gonna put here's a link to Google Lens. Um, somebody asked, can you do an example of Google Translate for taking a picture of something in a foreign language and translating it back? We can't do a demonstration of that during the event because it requires I think you have to do it on the phone.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can do. I'm going to look at the website of Google Translate and see if you can actually upload, which means put a photo from the computer or from the web into that website. Because if it
You
can, we can do
can.
that.
You can do screenshots. You can put screenshots
Oh,
and or websites and documents. I don't know if you can put images into it.
I don't see it, Jim. All I see is I see choose. Yeah, there's a tab up top. It says text and then documents. So then when you click that, it says choose a document, upload a .x, PDF, a PowerPoint file, an Excel file. So I suppose if you save the image as a PDF or put it into a document, it might be able to do it. I wonder. I wonder if it depends on how it reads the file. If it requires it to have text that's like plain text, the text that it can read each individual letter, then it won't be able to do that on the computer. But it might. I mean, who knows? I think that's something that you'd have to try out. Let's move on with we're getting a lot of good questions here. Um, with Apple CarPlay, I never know which map to use. What are the differences?
Between like Google Maps and Apple Maps.
I suppose, yeah, I mean, there are a few different types of mapping software. There are a few different mapping apps available to people. Probably Apple Maps and Google Maps are the tops. Um,
And Waze is a big one too.
Waze is a big one, yeah, but Google owns Waze now, so, or
Yeah, it's
it's owned
fair.
Waze for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are differences um, because the algorithm that it uses to determine directions are different. The way that it looks is different. Where it draws the maps from is different. So probably for most directions, it won't give you radically different directions unless you're using Waze, then it might. Uh, Waze, it was famous for routing people into all kinds of weird directions so that you gain a few minutes usually, sometimes not.
It
Uh,
kind of gamified driving, which was weird.
right. Yeah, it had all sorts of things on the screen. It's an interesting app, but I think Google over time, Google Maps has taken some of the features of Waze and incorporated it. Does Waze still exist as a separate app? I don't
Yes,
think.
it does.
Okay.
It does.
Yeah, so I mean, there are differences, but I would say that between Apple Maps and Google Maps, I wouldn't stress out too much about the decision you're making. I would say for most places that you're going, you could just choose either one and it'll be fine.
They also give like different information I noticed. So like when I'm using maps on that on the iPhone, it'll say like after two stoplights, turn left or something like that. But Google Maps doesn't do that. So there's some differences.
Yeah. Does Google Maps have a GPS tracker?
Yes, that's how it knows where you are.
Well, Google Maps itself, the app doesn't, but it's your
Right.
phone that has the GPS tracker, and Google
Yeah.
Maps uses the GPS tracker to then incorporate it within the app and shows you where you are.
Yeah.
So the actual app doesn't have a tracker. Um, how do you keep your phone safe from viruses or cyber attacks? That's a really great question. We actually have done a few programs on that. I will include them in the follow-up email. And if you search our digital literacy playlist on YouTube, I'm going to post a link in the chat quickly. You'll see that we have some on how to lock down your data and other programs on staying safe, keeping your devices safe. But yeah, that's a big topic. We really can't talk about that at this moment, just because we're running low on time and we've got a few other questions to answer. But it's a great question. It's an important question. So let's see. We've had a few other ones. Let me see. So we're looking at people talking about Google Images. I see. So there's Google Images. I think there's a question about reverse image search. Can you explain how reverse image search works, Martin?
Yeah, so reverse image search, basically you take an image that you already have and you put it into Google, and Google looks at the rest of the internet and sees if that image exists somewhere else. So if you, I know I'm really into the TV show Catfish, and they do this a lot on Catfish, where they'll like take a picture of someone and put it into Google image search to see if that image shows up somewhere else, and like if that person's on like a modeling website, or like is a fake person, or if that image is on somebody else's social media. So it'll come up there if it exists there. Um, so reverse image search just lets you look at the rest of the internet and see if that picture exists somewhere else.
I could demo it actually. I have it on my screen. I'm just gonna grab an image from the internet and then bring it up on my screen. So let's say I've got an image of a water. I'm finding an image of a waterfall here, and I wanna save that image that way. Uh, Copy image address. Okay. So let me share my screen now. Let's see if I can do that. No, I can't. I can't share yet.
Oh, I
Martin,
need to make you, yeah,
can you
sorry,
switch over
my
the
bad.
presenter to me?
Gotcha.
While I do that, does Google Maps have does it notification for police in the area?
I don't think, I know Waze does. I don't
With
know if Waze does. I don't think Google Maps does that. I don't think Apple Maps does that either.
Yeah, with Waze, it was people generated. So people would say they saw a cop
Mhm.
somewhere, and then so it would sometimes be accurate and sometimes it wouldn't. So yeah, that's I don't believe Google Maps has that layer. Okay, so I just copied this photo right here. I just copied the web address of this photo, and I'm going to go in here. And so this is Google Images, images.google.com. And here, what you can do is you can search by image. So I'm going to click on that, and it lets you either upload an image from your computer, or paste an image URL. So I'm going to paste the image URL. I just copied it, and here it is. I'm going to search for that image. So now Google's going to, so here's the image has come up, and it's going to search all of the, so it identified this place as Erawan National Park in Thailand. And it shows you all of the different, so there's similar images here. So it looks like, yeah, this is practically the same place, but they're slightly different images, which is fun to know. So you can see here that this image has been used in a lot of different places. Now, Google Image Search is not perfect because there are a lot of images that are similar. Um, and so because they're similar, the computer's like, well, these kind of look the same. So maybe these are the same image. But yeah, this is how Google Image Search works. It's really interesting. So if you find an image of a place and you're not sure what that place is, and it's just a might be a common image online, or an image of a landmark, you can put it into image search and it'll show you where that place is. All right, let me look and see what the other questions. We had a few other questions here, but I think we're getting towards the end. Google Maps should have a function to select avoiding turning left at stop sign on a main busy street. Oh, I know. This is what Waze used to do all the time, actually. What Waze, the problem I always had with Waze is that it would always route you. It'd make you make these wild left turns through, a four-lane street on a busy day, and you'd spend 5 minutes just waiting, edging out, trying to can you people wait, please, so I can make that left turn? Uh, yeah, I would agree. Google Maps should have the feature to avoid doing things that are perceived that people know are dangerous, but computers may not have the same kind of they may not have the same understanding. I think that's the problem. The algorithm or the computer making the decision to give you those directions doesn't realize when something is uncomfortable for the driver. So in those situations, I would always say, do what you feel is safe. Don't necessarily uh, completely 100% rely on the directions. If something looks weird or you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. Just go, make a different turn and have it reroute you. Or just look at the map and, kind of park your car, look at the map and kind of plot the way around yourself so that you don't have to follow directions that are not great. All right, Barton, thank you very much for doing the research on all of these wonderful Google programs and initiating us into the world of Google.
There's a lot to offer.
Yeah, much appreciated. And thank you to everybody out there who have stuck with us and asked us great questions and continue to come to our digital literacy series of events every Thursday at 11 a.m. With that, good luck, good afternoon, and we'll see you next time.